Good morning, everyone. I'm Tom Kelly, Automation Alley's Executive Director and CEO. Welcome to the launch of our newest virtual event series. This is our Industry 4.0 in Focus series, where each week I will interview different leaders of the digital transformation from both industry and academia. These individuals are contributors to Automation Alley's 2020 Technology and Industry Report, which is available digitally beginning today, which is pretty exciting for us. We're very proud to offer this report to our members for free and are looking forward to some great discussions focused on Industry 4.0's impact on business and what companies must do to position themselves for success. I encourage you to visit automationalley.com to download your copy now and follow along each week as we make our way through the report. Members can log into our portal and click on resources to download the full report. Today, I'm joined by Automation Alley COO Pavan Mazumdar and Automation Alley Vice President Cynthia Hutchison to discuss the report's key findings and the Velocity Index, which is an Automation Alley creation, which we find useful for our members. So Cynthia and Pavan, thanks for being here.
Thank you.
I should also mention that our virtual event attendees today can submit questions through the Q&A function in Zoom. So make sure to vote on which ones you want answered first, and we'll try and get to those answers. Certainly, if we have time, we have a half-hour podcast today. So with that said, Cynthia, Pavan, the launch of this report could not have come at a more significant time for the manufacturing industry, and all businesses for that matter, as COVID-19 has just fundamentally altered the way we do business and really forced us to think and act digitally first. So Cynthia, let me start with you to start this off. What is the top priority for business owners?
Thank you, Tom. The foundation for digital transformation, ironically, is not technology, it's people. And in our report, we found that executive teams must put into place education and training at all levels in order for change to actually take place. Only having a cursory understanding of these technologies is no longer an option. Participants in Industry 4.0, from very high-level executives to the boots on the ground every day in the plant floor, must have a proficient understanding of the digital transformation, how it is used to demonstrate ROI, and a strategic approach to change management in order to be successful.
That's actually absolutely right on target. And I think to pick up from Cynthia's point, when we start talking about ROI, it's important that the executive teams think of learning as the first return on investment, because often, in our culture, we don't necessarily give learning that much importance. And when we talk about Industry 4.0, which is the digital meeting the physical, it's this innovation that is super critical. And sometimes we need to get out of the box of the thinking that we've had and create this culture of innovative thinkers. And that has to start from the executive level, because if the executives do not encourage learning, it's not going to go down into the organization. So start with the educational return, then move on to the monetary return, and it will come. There is absolutely no doubt it will come.
Excellent. So Cynthia, digital transformation, close to my heart, while urgent, is still a long journey, especially for a lot of our members. What advice do you have for business owners that might just be getting started down this path?
Be persistent. This is a long-term investment that may not always look like it's yielding results, but make small bets to stay on course and continue the journey. Don't give up. No matter where an organization is along your Industry 4.0 transformation journey, the recommendations from our research is that you start your industry transformation now, if you haven't already, even if it's just with baby steps initially.
Yeah, right. And of course, I preach that till I'm blue in the face most days, and it's a journey.
Small ups and like bets.
Exactly. So Pavan, so given our current business climate and all the uncertainty that is afflicting everybody, it's afflicting Automation Alley, let me tell you, what's the number one thing the manufacturing industry as a whole can do to ensure sustainability and resiliency? And before you answer, I want to share with the audience that when I attended the World Economic Forum Summit on Manufacturing a couple months ago, it was supposed to be in Geneva, but we held it, of course, virtually like everybody around the world. the number one topic that came again and again from the 180 manufacturing executives there was how to be more sustainable and resilient in their manufacturing, that this exposed a lot of weaknesses for their supply chains around the world, and all of them are going to focus on that. So, with that said, and with that setup, Pavan, what do they need to focus on?
Well, you set it up perfectly, right? So Cynthia mentioned earlier in her remarks that culture is super critical at the organizational level. And it really translates out, into the ecosystem. We have in manufacturing sometimes this cutthroat competitive type of an environment, but the future is going to be much more collaborative. And that doesn't mean that you just expose all your IP, but it does mean how you share best practices, how you learn as an ecosystem, how you learn as a peer group, and then moving away from isolationism to something that's much more open, much more collaborative within the industry. And Tom, to your point, we see this at the World Economic Forum's AMHUB communities, where there are a lot of discussion. Business leaders that might be competitive out on the street come in to roundtables, and they're participating as peers, learning from each other, and that's going to be super critical. And we find that if you have transparency and collaboration, you will benefit from Industry 4.0.
Excellent. So let's shift gears a bit and get specific on the report, hence why everybody's tuning in, right? So let's talk about the 2020 Technology and Industry Report and the perceptions of our Automation Alley ecosystem. So we have about 1,187 members at last count. So the lot of people have a lot of opinions about where the world is going. But specifically, Pavan, let's talk about the velocity index and what insights we were able to glean as people filled out this survey related to the velocity of these different technologies. The survey we conducted. What did we see there?
Certainly. So Tom, let me kind of set the stage of what is the velocity index, right? So this is a tool that we created. It's a product we created at Automation Alley, and really our goal was, while we have experts in the field telling us where technology is going, what's happening, etc., what we really wanted to understand is what are the executives that are playing the game every single day seeing. That is, we wanted the people that were being directly impacted by these technologies so that we could understand what it is that they're seeing, what it is that they're perceiving, etc. So the data was collected, through an Automation Alley survey, super simple to fill in. And it was done between about September to December of 2019. We had about over 150 individuals within the membership base, pretty diverse demographic, filling out these forms. And there's a lot of stuff. I mean, I think the graphic is up on the screen, but there's a lot of insights. The one insight I'd like to share with, and I know we're going to talk about some of these other things, that really caught my attention, and I know we've kind of talked about this internally, is that orange arrow that you see that's at the leftmost that we have, which is artificial intelligence, and then right next to that, there's this one about 3D printing. And if you look at so before I kind of go down into arrows, but let me kind of share with you. So the y-axis is what we think importance is. And then the x-axis, I don't think we can see what it says, the legend there, but that's maturity. So maturity going from left to right is increasing maturity as we perceive it today. And then importance as we feel it is today. And then the arrow is indicating where the importance is going. And the direction of the arrow is kind of telling you how quickly it is, where the importance is increasing, or the level of increase in importance. And then the length of the arrow is the speed at which things are changing. So immediately start seeing some very interesting patterns. The one I'd like to point out to you, primarily because it's Industry 4.0, the definition almost of Industry 4.0 is the one for 3D printing. That's that light orange arrow, orange yellow arrow that's there, that talks about the maturity kind of being not as high and the importance not growing as much. And that to us is very interesting because that could be a potential blind spot. And the reason we think it's a blind spot is because as much as 3D printing is a physical technology, all the innovation, all the progress, all the changes that are occurring in 3D printing tend to occur in software. And if that occurs in software, it means it's occurring in software time, which means it is exponentially growing. So that's one of those things that I'm going to just throw out there as one of the most interesting outcomes. And we can talk about some of these other sectors as well.
Terrific, terrific. So by the way, Jeff, I see your question. We'll get to that at the end. So thank you. If anybody else has questions, please add them to our Q&A board, and we'll be happy to try to get to as many as we can. Everyone will get an answer, maybe not live, but we'll definitely see if we can get to that. So moving on then, so having been used to plug various shortages during the current crisis, do you think there'll be a shift towards how 3D printing can be used during and after COVID-19? Cynthia, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I do think, just like we saw with PP and the ventilator parts, additive manufacturing may be able to play a role in helping support industrial supply chains that are affected by limitations or disruptions to traditional production, whether in COVID or beyond COVID. I think that will continue. One thing for sure, 3D printing could have an immediate beneficial effect when the supply chain is completely broken.
That's it's right on. I'll just add in one of the nice things about 3D printing is that the learning for 3D printing can be relatively cost effective, because while some of the 3D printers are expensive, the ones that you would use for production materials, learning how to do 3D printing is what we call a highly democratic task. There are some very inexpensive 3D printers, because at the end of the day, what's going to change when you implement 3D printing is not so much that underlying technology as much as that it is the workflow of the way the product is manufactured, right? How you get the request, how that request becomes a real product, design considerations on file formats and things like that. Those are things that you can learn ahead of time. And then what's interesting about 3D printing is that because it's a self-contained manufacturing environment, if you will, some of that work is going to go into more like the engineering side of things, and it has high scalability on the labor side. So those are things that we think can be very, very interesting. You can spend hours and hours doing the digital and then have a product out there and see how well you did. And that promise is unique to 3D printing because of the sort of the low cost of entry.
That, I'll add a little point in here. And that is that we were talking to one of our larger members in the tech space, a Silicon Valley type member. And they were saying they have a 3D printer. It'll be 4 times as fast as it was a month ago this month with the new software update. It'll be 16 times as fast within the next year. You have to put this in perspective that manufacturing, how quickly it's changing, the pace follows a software exponential curve, not a physical linear curve. And we need to be very careful that we understand what's happening in manufacturing. So that just another sort of data point that we need to be paying attention to some of these technologies much more closely than perhaps we're doing. So brings me to another technology that the one Pavan and I, you and I talk about this ad nauseum about how mind-blowing this is, but artificial intelligence. It's going to have a significant impact. So what did our respondents have to say about AI?
Yeah,
so Pavan, you start.
Yeah, so this one is it's pretty, from our perspective as a blind spot. I see one that should be viewed very cautiously, and the reason for that is a lot of our respondents felt that the technologies had very low levels of maturity than some of the other sectors within manufacturing. That's probably a fair assessment, right? Because some of these other technologies are more tangible, they're more visible, they're seeing, things like that. But what concerned us the more was, what did they say was the pace of change and the relative importance in the future? And it was, if you'll notice, it's that arrow at the bottom left of that velocity index. It's a very short arrow, and it doesn't incline too much. And both of those we think are serious blind spots. So first, we think that AI, to your point, is almost entirely a software play, which means that it has exponential scaling and growth. The rate of change is generally exponential. And then the second thing is just the amount of disruption in the amount of change AI can make. And I'm not talking about necessarily the AI that you might see in the public commentary, things where, we're using AI to do, detection of people, the facial recognition and things like that. We're talking about AI as it is used in manufacturing, is that because it is so iterative and so software based, it can actually create very, very high levels of disruption. An example, something called generative design, where, an algorithm basically goes ahead and combined with 3D printing, it determines the most optimized 3D shape of a product based on, the internal stresses and things like that to finally create this design. That's something that's absolutely mind-boggling, and where it can go is one of those things. And that's not to say we know where it's going. What we're basically saying is pay attention to this, because this is something that could have some serious implications, both positive and negative. In other words, capabilities are great, but also, potentially the potential for disruption is great.
Right. So let's touch on cybersecurity, Cynthia. So what did our respondents say about cybersecurity in this technology vertical?
Tom, they found our respondents rated cybersecurity as very mature, very important, and rapidly increasing importance within manufacturing. Now, we believe that this may be due to the overexposure of cybersecurity incidents in trade and mainstream media. When there is a problem, we all hear about it ad nauseum, as you say. We hear about it over and over and over. So that might be part of what created that.
So is cybersecurity not important?
Definitely, it is not important. No, definitely not. Is it not important?
We made news today. Don't worry about cybersecurity.
Cybersecurity is important. Yes, it is important. It's very important, especially now as we all move into this digital first mindset. So we wouldn't argue with the importance of cybersecurity. We simply caution leaders not to get fixated on cyber issues at the expense of some of the other truly transformational Industry 4.0 technologies they also need to evaluate.
Yeah, very, very good. So let's get to a question. So Jeffrey Sage had asked, what specific types of learning programs do you find effective in the current environment? Pavan or Cynthia, somebody want to start? You want to think about that question? You probably didn't see it.
Yeah, could you repeat the question, Tom?
Yeah, think about what specific types of learning programs do you find effective in the current, I assume, COVID environment?
So I wish we had some of our academic partners in this conversation, and I think we'd love to maybe ask this question in a future, because they, when we talk about learning programs in general, we're seeing there's a great level of disruption that's happening in education, in what we might call four-year academic institutions. But one of the things we say all the time at Automation Alley, we've been saying this for years now, is that Industry 4.0 is a democratizing force. And what that means is that access to learning is available almost everywhere. And, if in the absence of anything else, the level of programming that is available for every single one of these technologies to get at least the first step that is available online is absolutely mind-boggling. So what I mean by online is Udemy, Coursera. These are some really, and by the way, I personally am taking courses on Coursera, specializations that even though I have a software background from back in the day, some of the stuff that we're learning today is different, and it's helped me keep up with some of these changes. So I'm hoping that was what that question was in terms of programs, but those are some offerings that companies can use. And in terms of more formal programs, There are offerings at the state level and at, within our resource network that companies can avail of to educate their people.
So let me add to that. So there are learning programs today that are fantastically off the charts effective, but they're almost non-existent in a manufacturing environment. And I'm talking about virtual reality and augmented reality. So in virtual reality, you can put somebody in the exact environment you want to train them in, and you can cause a significant emotional attachment to that experience. So it's not you're learning on a computer or you're taking a test and circling with a number 2 pencil all the right answers. You're actually living the experience as if it were real to you because of this virtual reality environment. So if you talk about effective, virtual reality can be highly effective. Downside, it's very expensive and it's not well understood. So you have this curve. And again, it'll follow an exponential curve. And if you know exponential curves, they bounce along at 0 for a long time because at the lower bound, they don't make much change until you start to inflect, and then they hockey stick up. And so virtual reality will follow this path, but people are not really investing or investigating too much about how that works. Another one that's going to come on the scene very strong that people need to pay attention to is augmented reality. So there's already systems that exist, Microsoft HoloLens. There are assembly stations that will map instructions for you. And so what we're talking about learning environments, it's not go over here and learn how to do something and then use your brain to remember what you needed to do. Augmented reality says you don't need to think or remember. You're going to assemble this component exactly the way I tell you to do it. You have the dexterity and the ability to follow instructions, and that's all you need as a human. Humans are great at following instructions. They're great at recognizing patterns. They're great at understanding the subtleties and the intuition of how things go together and what needs to happen. But we're not really embracing that. And why that will change is both Samsung and Apple will begin to embed, with the advent of 5G into their phones, they will begin to put into the phones 5G augmented reality, where you'll hold up your phone at a restaurant, physical place, and it'll show you the menu right on your phone, or it'll show you anything you need. That's learning behavior, where you're saying, I don't need to know that. That will be taught to me at the exact moment I need it taught. So if you're in manufacturing, especially manufacturing that has high churn, you really need to be thinking about augmented reality systems because they're not that expensive. They're really not. You could probably get a whole system for under $40,000. That's the cost of a person. And when you're cycling people out, maybe you have 30% churn. That is not a lot of money to getting people in that can be productive. Instead of 2 or 3 weeks, they might be productive in a couple days. And now you're really talking about a significant ROI. So any last minute comments, guys?
We have a really interesting comment from Bill Crows. I believe that's the way you say his last name. And he talks about how, as we were talking about this iterative design, this company built a Wi-Fi earphone using, several prototypes of enclosures that it appears before they move to production mode. And so there's an example of using, I'm assuming it's 3D printing. It's not.
That's awesome.
Clear, but those are the examples. Those are the kinds of things that Industry 4.0 brings to the table, where it's not just a complete change of what you were doing, but using things very effectively in terms.
Bill, I want to make sure. Bill Cross. I hope I probably butchered your name, but Bill, you know who you are. Please get in touch with us because we'd love to talk to you about that success story. We love sharing stories with our community about I4O successes. So make sure that we circle back on that. Oh, we got another question, couple questions coming in. So Kim asks, Nikki, I'll get to yours in a minute if we have time. What's the role for collaborative robots? If this isn't a setup, Pavan, I don't know. I don't think I've met Kim. Maybe we have. I apologize if I don't remember, but thanks for the question, Kim.
Yeah, well, go ahead, Tom. Why don't you take it?
Okay. Yes. Well, you need to be better prepared then, mister. So anyway, so collaborative robots is going to have a huge impact. And the reason for that is as you go down this path of 3D printing and you go down this path of augmented reality assembly, what you're going to find is the natural outgrowth of that is going to be collaborative robots help marry the 3D printing world with the subtractive world and the assembly world, right? There's kind of three things that happen in any given moment. Parts are being assembled or made, and that could be 3D printing, or if it's assembly, then you're using a human to assemble them. And there's robots. Today, the robots tend to be big and bulky and dangerous, and they haven't really transcended to this small, cute, work alongside humans. They're trying, but if you took a big brute and said, make something dainty, you'd end up with what is a collaborative robot today. It's still this brutish, ugly, dangerous kind of thing that they pass out. Oh, it's completely safe. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. But it's not really there. But those new robots are coming, these collaborative robots that are going to just transcend this final stage where humans really do work alongside collaborative robots. And it's going to be 3D with AI, with assembly instructions, with collaborative robots. It's all Industry 4.0 coming together, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't know if you guys have anything to add. We'll take one more question, and then we promise we do this in a half hour. We'll answer all the questions offline with you for sure. Hassan asked, are there any Automation Alley partners actively using AR, VR, any case studies? Yes, we have case studies. In fact, we will reference those both in our tech report and in future episodes when we go forward. So absolutely. I don't want to give too much of a shout out to any one particular group, because then I've offended all the other groups in one fell swoop. So we'll defer on that, and forgive me for deferring. But with that said, everyone, any final comments, Pavan and Cynthia?
No, I think this, as you know, that this is the beginning of the series, right? So we thought it would be good to kind of open up with the velocity index, because it kind of goes, this is really us, feeding back to the general audience what everybody else is saying. And then we had a little bit of our editorializing where we said, just be cautious of this blind spot, and we're learning all of this together. So, what I would say to all the participants today is just, please be part of our community. As you learn, let us learn with you. If you have a case study, to your point, share that with us. If you have an interesting opportunity to share wisdom, please do that by being part of our community. So, with that, I'll hand it over to Cynthia.
Yeah, and I would just like to say, when somebody asks about case, we will be having case studies periodically throughout the series. So do tune into that and understand that the case studies come from our member companies, and we're very proud of our role in Michigan as being true leaders in advanced manufacturing and application of technology. So we're excited to share those cases. And if any of you have case studies you want us to know about, please let us know, because it's the exciting part of what we do. And we're very, very proud to be part of this ecosystem. Thank you.
Yeah. And one last question. Somebody asked, I got a meeting invite, said it was an hour meeting. So apologize for that. We're trying to do these in short, interesting bursts where we just get to the facts. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Sorry to give you 30 minutes of your day back, but we're going to keep these to 30 minutes if we can. So all of these going forward, we're going to now shift and start doing deep dives around specific topics. So AI will dive deep for 30 minutes with the actual academics that helped us write the report, and on and on and on. So I think it's going to be really fun, really informative, all about the community. And so, please join us for this series. It'll be live once a week. And of course, if you miss live, it's going to be archived for you too. So either way, you're going to be able to get this useful information. So as we talked about, this is like as pivotal. This is a pivotal time in manufacturing. These rapid technological advancements provide manufacturers with fantastic opportunities for growth. But 2020 is also a time of profound uncertainty. for our business leaders and the global workforce. There's new challenges around every corner, it seems like. I just heard about murder bees and locusts in Africa. I mean, we got it all in 2020. Lots of uncertainty. Yeah. So, there's challenges around just all the data we're collecting about everything. The cyber threats that we're dealing with, the impact and the fallout of this COVID-19, the worst pandemic of our lifetimes. It's just so much change and so much fear and uncertainty. But there's a lot of opportunity and hope to be had in this. So we look forward to continuing the conversation each week with a different guest to address all of these challenges, as well as the great opportunities that lie before us. So here's the teaser. Join me next week as I'll welcome Dr. Anka Sala. She's the Dean of the College of Engineering at Baker College, and Dr. Patricia Chapman. She's the Dean of Henry Ford College's School of Business, Entrepreneurship, and Professional Development. And they're going to break down 5G technology for us, its impact on manufacturing, and its potential to truly unlock the power of Industry 4.0. So thanks for joining us, everybody. I hope you had a good time being with us today. Have a great day. Enjoy the weather, and we'll see you next week. Take care, everybody.